So there is this Cold War going on between, and both sides, both the English and the French, are using native Indian people to fight with them on their side. And there's all sorts of power plays going on. It's actually quite a complicated picture. But the sort of momentum and the French are in the ascendancy, really, where they, for a while, they dominate all of sort of southeastern India, and only really Madras and now little forts are holding out.
Yeah.
And they even go on to dominate sort of the Deccan Plain into sort of what becomes Mysore, big chunks of central India. So they're really, on the map, they're doing very well. Well, it looks like they're doing very well.
Actual French control of these things would have been highly tenuous, right?
Well, yeah.
You know, it's just like nominally, you know, the French are in charge. But what's that mean to the average Indian tribesman? Nothing.
Well, yeah, again, they're not necessarily in charge. They're just that they've got the rights to trade in those regions. It will still be like Chanda Sahib, who's the actual ruler.
Right.
But the French just gain access to all the trade, things like that. So only really Madras and places like Fort St David are holding out. There's a central one of Chanda Sahib's main cities is a place called Trichinopoly, and so Clive sort of unbelievably leads a tiny force of men. I think a few dozen or like 100 guys, European soldiers, with a handful of
English soldiers,
with a handful of Indian, what would become sepoys. Sort of suicidally leads them out to Trichinopoly to take it.
Okay.
And there's another town, Accra, is it? Arcot, where that was really like people like, surely he's not leading a force to Arcot, like the central city of Arcot. That's like crazy. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But he did it, and it was done with such sort of swiftness and, again, a type of panache that the defenders just sort of didn't really fire a shot. They were just like bowled over by it. You know, you can't quite believe it that he's turned up there with a few couple of hundred
and
muskets.
Did he take Trichinopoly?
Yeah, eventually, right, yeah. There's fighting. There's fighting at Trichinopoly.
Yeah.
The walls have to be defended. Actually, this is in 1751, so that's slightly later, to be honest. Actually, let's get the chronology right. At Trichinopoly, at Arcot he takes without a shot fired.
Right.
But at Trichinopoly, there is fighting, actually. The Chanda Sahib hears that this has happened. He's not there at the time. He hears it's happened, comes back with quite a large army, sort of 10,000 guys, and like hundreds of siege ladders and a few war elephant. And
just a few war elephants.
Yeah, a few armoured war elephant, as you do at Trichinopoly. There's, Clive is still only 26 years old at this point.
Mental.
So he's still a young man, right? To have the guts, really, just the straight up guts to be doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. You know who he's reminding me of?
Who?
Callum's friend, Lord Miles.
Right.
Yeah. Do you not think that if 200 years ago Lord Miles was given the opportunity to go to India or Afghanistan or something, he would have been like doing the same thing?
Well, I
can't help but feel
I think Lord Miles has got guts, but I don't know how he'd fare up in the face of like a cannonade.
I think he'd enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah, I think
maybe.
He'd enjoy it.
I don't know. Yeah. I think that sort of thing you only know once it happens to you. You only know how you would react.
But you get these young men who enjoy danger. Danger's their drug,
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So
at Trichinopoly, sort of completely against the odds, because Clive has only got a few hundred men. They do defend the walls
against war elephants and 10,000 natives. Right.
Again, it's this idea that it looks like we're probably going to be overrun and butchered to a man, but I'm not just going to let that happen. I'm at least going to go down fighting.
Turns out if you stand your ground, it might not happen.
Seems like Clive was nearly killed in that. He was nearly killed. But again, apparently he's running up and down the ramparts, sort of personally inspiring people, firing back. personally, all that sort of thing. Also, again, these are just sort of early stories of his early life, really. The point is that he's tenacious. He's got a lot of ambition, and he's kind of ruthless when it comes to, if he sees like an opening somewhere, he's going to go for it. Okay, so I'll cut that short because we can't go on and on. There are fair amounts of detail about this, the fighting at Trichinopoli and the Arcot, although Arcot falls almost without a shot fired. But the point is the ascendancy of the French in southern, central, south eastern India it's had a knock to it there. It's like the English aren't just going to be completely just stamped out of existence in India. Clive, if no one else, Clive is going to see that's not the case.
And in fact, Clive just turned back the French ally, the French king.
Yeah.
Not the French king, the Indian king who's allied with the French.
Chunda Shahi, has been checked there. It's a real embarrassment for him. Oh, for sure.
This must have been shocking. Sure. He's like, how the hell did we lose that? We had armoured war elephants.
Yeah, we got 10,000 guys. What? How did that just happen?
Yeah.
That happens a lot in India, it seems. That when they are out, when they are got massive numbers and they still lose, they just can't believe it.
Because they have access to guns, don't they?
Yeah, they've got some guns, big guns. They had 3 big artillery pieces.
Yeah, because if they were just using spears or something, I'd be like, okay, well there we go, that explains everything. But they do have guns, you know, so it's just like,
yeah, I think it's this idea that you stand and fight. The Indian side of the ledger just often wouldn't stand and fight. They just wouldn't. If they started taking some casualties, or if they even just thought that it wasn't worth the risk of dying today, they would just turn away. Whereas quite often the English, or lots of different Europeans, the English and the French, they'll stand and fight until their gun batteries are overrun and they're bayoneted to a man.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy Europeans.
Yeah. So there's one story here that some say is apocryphal.
Yeah.
And some say it happened. But again, it's sort of foreshadowing what happens a bit later in Clive's life. Is that after this, there's sort of a period of quiet, a little bit of quiet in his life, and he falls into some sort of quite dark depression. And some say even attempted suicide. That he put a gun to his head.
Nobody's trying to kill me. I'll have to do it myself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah, and because once things kick off again, he's like, it's just out of his mind.
Yeah,
the idea of being depressed just goes out of his mind, and he carries on, and he's got lots and lots of energy.
Yeah.
Someone said this sounds bipolar.
Maybe
you're
a bit.
Extremely up, or you're terribly depressed. One or the other.
Maybe a bit, but he's just clearly a man who just loves danger.
I think it's difficult to make diagnosis, especially mental illness diagnoses at the distance of hundreds of years. Yeah. But it does seem he may be a bit bipolar, because whenever there's downtime in his life, he gets really depressed. And whenever he's got things to do, he's fine and he's really happy. So, but apparently he was supposed to put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger and it didn't fire, and did it again and it didn't fire. Then someone took the pistol off him, pointed it out the window and fired it, and it did go off.
Which goes to show you about the reliability of weapons in the 18th century.
Yeah, like a very, very early sort of pistol type thing.
Some guy charging at you, you level your gun and click.
Right, yeah, dead man's click.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have said in that instance that, well, I must be reserved for something. Like it's like the gods wanted me not to die today. Today.
Well, you could see how that would be portentous.
Yeah. Just one last quote, that in 1751, when they repelled the French and the Indians at Trichinopoli.
Well, that's the thing, is just because there were 200 French there at the same time.
Right,
so it's not like, how many Brits are we talking?
I think it was something like 200 odd, 300 odd.
So, as a roughly, parity force of French and Brits facing off with 10,000 Indians. And somehow, Clive managed to do it. So that's quite impressive. Because if it was just, natives who weren't familiar with European ways of war or something like that, you could be like, okay, fair enough. But there are 200 French there as well. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know their business, for sure. Yeah. One of the Britishers wrote home about that and said, quote, "We British were left to gaze at each other in the first garish brilliance of the suddenly uplifted sun." In other words, like, can't quite believe we made it to this day, that we made it. I mean, I've never had an experience where I've had to desperately fight for my life.
All night.
Yeah.
Against the overwhelming odds. And then, so live to see the sunrise. No, I haven't had that either.
You can only imagine that it must be like
euphoric.
What they say in Fight Club, like that breakfast.
Yeah.
You've never ate food that tasted that good.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the air smells like the best air you've ever inhaled.
Yeah.
All that sort of thing.
No doubt.
But it's great. It's the stuff of sort of semi-legend, isn't it? It's great. Well, at the end of that, apparently there were only 80 Britishers left. A lot of them were killed.
Well, yeah.
Clive was definitely in the thick of it as well. Yeah. He definitely put his life in danger. There's no question.
What choice do you have?
Repeatedly.
You got 200 men. You know? There's not enough like physical lines to hide behind. You know.
And after they repel that attack, a small relieving force of Brits come and save them. So they are sort of safe at that point. Someone else wrote home saying, "We solaced ourselves with the pleasing reflection that we had maintained the character of Britain in a climate so remote from our own."
Good.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.